So how do you commit the perfect crime? Planning. Not getting caught. But obviously, this wasn't the perfect crime because they got caught. Yes, let's talk about Leopold and Loeb. Welcome to Enter the Dark. Hello and welcome to Enter the Dark. I am Jan. With me as always is Les. You right?
Oh, not so bad, mate.
Good. If this sounds shit, it's because I've just built a new little studio around us. If it sounds good, it's because I've built a new little studio around us.
He tries.
Yeah.
It's really,
I did try. I did notice that I was trying to test it out and then noticed you don't actually have fucking speakers for your PC.
No. Headphones for.
Where are they? Anyway. Not bad. Anyway, so tonight's story is on Leopold and Loeb, the two best friends who thought they could commit the perfect crime.
I'm guessing they didn't, did they?
No, well, obviously not, because, the perfect crime, you wouldn't know about it. But people you do want to know about are our Patreon supporters. Yes, we have Hannah Blue Harrington, Amanda Champagne, Astoria Crowley, Amy Emma and Jet Coleman, Lisa Dempsey, Marie T. Jensen, Casey the Cannibal, Becky Louise, Izzy from the Clink, Jules Henderson, Michelle Hudson, Alicia Llewellyn, Mandy Madden, Fire Pixie, Little Mascara, Cookie Fanny, Elle, Swiss Phil, Krista, and a new one, Elizabeth Lee. Thank you all. If you do want to give us money and help us to buy some more foam to go around us and over our heads, you can do by going to www.patreon.com/enterthedark. Pleasure anything from $1 all the way up to $50. Or you can actually, literally, you could put in $20,000 and you could give us that. I'm not saying do that, but,
He's definitely saying do
it'd be nice, because then we could quit work and then you'd get one of these a week. So it's up to you. Anyway, let's crack on. Leopold and Loeb. Les, have you heard of them? Of course you haven't.
No. Leopold's a sick name, though.
That's his surname as well.
What, is it? What's his first name?
Well, Lesothy, let's get into it.
Lesothy.
Fuck. Are you ready for this fucking name?
Go for it.
Nathaniel Freudenthal Leopold Jr.
The German, by any chance?
No, they're American.
Fuck off.
I will not fuck off. They were.
These were American.
Yeah.
Of German extraction.
Of course they were, German immigrants.
Of course. Like, our Americans like to say that, like, they're Scottish or Irish. Like, everybody
Well, they don't say Scottish, do they? Go, I am Scotch.
I'm Scotch, yeah. Scotch. And the Scottish don't like that. But, like, in like, fucking, what's it? Boston, they all say they're all Irish in Boston, aren't they? There's more fucking Irish in Boston than in Ireland, it seems.
Apparently.
I mean, the diaspora and all that, it might be the case. Anyway.
Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Just paedophilia.
It's not paedophilia. It's not all paedophilia.
Have you ever seen the film Spotlight? No. Where they uncovered the Catholic Church's covering up of paedophile priests.
That was one priest.
It wasn't. It was a fucking... you need to watch that film. It wasn't one priest. Why are you fucking defending Catholics?
Because I like it. Anyway, continue.
Fucking nonsense. Love it. Anyway, so Nathaniel Freudenthal Leopold Jr. and Richard A. Loeb. That's not as good, is it?
Richard A. Loeb.
A. Loeb. Had met in the summer of 1920. Both boys...
Oh, yeah, I'm on the gin viewers.
Yeah, we're not sponsored, so you don't tell them what it is.
But it's Whitley Neal.
Now they owe us money. Now I've got to go and hunt them down.
In particular, Whitley Neal Black Cherry Gin. Inspired by South African cherry orchard.
I've got green tea. Sponsored by...
I'm off the ale, I'm onto the hard stuff now.
Yeah. His alcoholism is growing. Anyway, can I start this fucking show, please?
Yes, go for it.
Jesus Christ. People will be like, I didn't like this one because they didn't get game for 10 minutes. And I'm just, fuck you. Also, well done to that person who, when we said 9/11, said that was a reference to the terrorist attacks in New York.
Somebody seriously put that?
Yeah. You need to get in touch with Mensa really quickly. Right. Anyway, last time I'm doing this now. Nathan Freudenthal, Leopold Jr. and Richard A. Loeb met in the summer of 1920. Both boys had grown up in Kenwood, an exclusive Jewish neighbourhood on the south side of Chicago. Leopold was a brilliant student who matriculated at the University of Chicago at the age of 15. Did you matriculate at the age of 15?
Many times.
No, you didn't. And he also earned the distinction as an amateur ornithologist.
Amateur ornithologist. He was a bird watcher.
He published 2 papers in the Orc, the leading
The Orc? What is this, fucking Dungeons and Dragons?
No, it's the leading...
there's a bird called an orc, but...
The leading ornithological journal in the United States, and was recognised as the nation's leading authority on the Kirtland warbler, an endangered songbird. Are you the leading authority on the Kirtland warbler?
No, but I'm impressed.
Then put some fucking respect on his name.
Okay.
His family was wealthy and well-connected. His father was an astute businessman who had inherited a shipping company and had a second fortune in an aluminium can and paper box manufacturing. It's a box factory, like in The Simpsons, and he's like, this room looks like all the others. Or this one is, oh no, we took that out. Yeah, it's just the same.
Hey, it's been a while.
I keep sneaking in the Simpsons references.
Yeah, it's been a while.
In 1924, Leopold, who was 19, was studying law at the University of Chicago. Everyone expected that his career will be one of distinction and honour. Now, Richard Loeb also came from a wealthy family. His father was the vice president of Sears Roebuck and Company, Sears Catalogue.
Yeah, Sears Catalogue,
yeah. And possessed an estimated fortune of 10 million. Which nowadays would be worth 149 million.
Jesus.
Yeah, fucking loads, man.
What date's this?
1924.
Fucking hell.
The third son in a family of 4 boys, Loeb had distinguished himself early, graduating from high school at the age of 14 and matriculating later the same year at the University of Chicago. Fucking clever lads these are.
Doing a lot of matriculating.
Oh yeah, matriculating all over the place.
Matriculating all over your face.
Yeah. His experience as a student at the university, however, was not a happy one.
No, why not?
Because Loeb's classmates were several years older and he earned only mediocre grades. At the end of his sophomore year, he transferred to the University of Michigan, where he remained a lacklustre student who spent more time playing cards and reading detective novels than sitting in a classroom. I mean, that's how you're going to fail. Playing cards and reading detective novels. He became an alcoholic during these years at Ann Arbor. Nevertheless, he managed to graduate from Michigan, and in 1924, he was back in Chicago taking graduate courses in history at the university. Now, Leopold also had a keen interest in philosophy and was an avid reader of Nietzsche, who often wrote about the Übermensch, a superman who sets his own values and can affect the lives of others. This was famously interpreted by that little scamp Hitler, and that the Germans were superior, and frankly went a little bit too far with it. He would talk endlessly about mythical Superman who, because he was a Superman, stood outside the law, beyond any moral code that might constrain the actions of ordinary men, even murder.
Which, to be fair, if you actually read Nietzsche, that's not what it says.
No, doesn't.
It doesn't.
Doesn't say, killed the disabled and gypsies either, does it?
No.
That's why Hitler, frankly, went too far with it.
It's because he couldn't read.
I mean...
Or paint faces.
I mean, he painted dogs.
Paint dogs?
Yeah.
Can paint landscapes. Pretty talented, are you?
Yeah.
I mean, let's not take that away from him.
No, let's not apologise.
I'm not apologising for him. I'm just saying objectively, if I saw a landscape by Hitler, I'd be like, I'd consider buying it.
Have you ever seen that Always Sunny episode where they've got Hitler's painting? And it's like Hitler did all those bad things because he was sad about his dog dying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that popped into my head. So Leopold claimed murder was an acceptable act for a Superman to commit if the deed gave him pleasure. Morality did not apply in such a case. Yes, he was Andrew Tate before Andrew Tate.
Topical.
It's probably not going to be topical by the time this comes out.
Fair.
I have work to do. Can't just edit. This isn't to say that the two friends were your average person in the street. The friends were exceptionally intelligent. Leopold had an IQ of around 200, and Loeb tested around 160.
Even say you had good lobes.
Even in their family lives, they were special. Richard Loeb's father, Albert Loeb, denied nothing to his son. He told the family secretary that Dickie was to have any sum at any time without question. Leopold was also given any amount of money at any time for any reason, or for even no reason whatsoever. The actions of Leopold's father seemed to suggest that the rules for ordinary people did not apply to him. If the boy killed birds in the park or fish out of season, his father just paid the fines or obtained a special permit for him without comment.
Fish out of season?
Yeah, because you...
Yeah, because I know you've got the season up, but just killed. It's like
goes fishing.
You've caught a carp, and you should have done that last February because...
That was when it was fishing season.
Yeah.
Can't you remember the Bugs Bunny cartoons?
Well, yeah, so there's I know the season. Is that any fish, or are we talking it's like...
I don't know, I wasn't there. Anyway, it doesn't matter because his daddy just gave money at it.
Does matter, though, because it's like, I caught a pike this time, Dad.
I don't think it matters. You can't fish when out of season. You can't hunt rabbits out of season. That's why Elmer Fudd was always happy. And then when Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny were arguing, they cut duck season, rabbit season, and then it was Fudd season.
So this is duck season and then rabbit season.
Yeah, and they keep swapping it. And then Fudd season, and then they were hunting Elmer Fudd.
They've got a bear season.
I don't think you can hunt bear. I think if a bear is... Because I've watched this on Gold Rush. If a bear's coming into your camp, you can shoot away, but if it's attacking you, you can kill it. But when you kill it, you can then eat it and shit.
Apparently it's tasty.
Never tried bear?
I've never tried bear, but they eat it in Japan. There's a special place where you can go.
You can buy schoolgirls' pants in a fucking vending machine in Japan.
That's racist, Joe.
It's not. It's true. You can.
It's true, but it's...
It would have been racist if I would have used my Japanese accent. But I'm not.
Yeah, that's only for us. Anyway, continue.
Hi. Where the fuck was it? Yeah, so anyway. Over several years, Leopold and Loeb had developed a homosexual relationship at which time was called Browning, for obvious reasons.
Browning?
It was Browning.
Browning?
Yeah, so Loeb was the browner and Leopold was the brownie, in case you were wondering.
Can you explain this?
Right, who's brown?
No, we don't need to go that basic. But the brown and the brownie... Oh, so the brownie is the taker.
Have you got it? There was also one I was looking up because I was like, oh, these are weird slang things. A muzzler was a guy who liked he liked to suck off guys who weren't gay. So, when you get those straight guys who are like, I'm not gay, I'm just having a blowjob. Yeah, it was called a muzzler. 1920s slang. Where you can find Al Capone doing the Charleston on a flagpole. Simpsons reference again.
That's for so many reasons. Anyway.
What's funny about muzzler?
I'll tell you later.
We've got a captive audience.
No.
Okay.
It's not for them.
Look forward for the YouTube shorts where I tell you what it was.
Anyway,
yeah, so they were browning. Now, the pair started out committing petty crimes at the age of 15. Loeb created a system for cheating at cards, which required Leopold as a partner. Oh. They did not do this to make money, though, as they had all the money that they could want. This was done to fool their classmates and the feeling of getting away with it. So, Ubermensch thing.
Ubermensch, yeah. Misinterpreted.
Now, they didn't want the notoriety of being known because they were card cheats, because they were above that and only, in their words... Peasants require notoriety. Yeah. Peasants want notoriety. Richard Loeb thrived on getting away with crimes and avoiding any sort of detection whatsoever, whilst Nathan Leopold sort of enjoyed it, but liked making Richard happy more than anything. Now, other crimes they would partake in usually committed when Richard was drunk, like smashing car windows and jumping into a waiting car driven by Nathan and speeding away. Others would be smashing store windows, stealing cars and joyriding, and a few minor cases of arson.
A few minor cases?
Yeah, they were arson around. Thank you. I'm here all night. Anyway, every time they would get away with a crime, the more intricate their dark fantasies became, especially Richard's. Now, he began to think he was a master criminal whose ingenuity and genius would command the respect of Chicago's underworld. Yeah. I'm sure Al Capone was like, oh yeah, you set some fires, smashed a window, boy, I've got a lot to learn from you. Did you know there was nothing in Al Capone's vault? But it wasn't Geraldo's fault. Simpsons reference. He would also fantasize about getting caught, but with a bit of a twist.
With a bit of a twist.
After being caught, right, he would be whipped and beaten by half-naked male prison guards. With a crowd of young girls, they would look on with admiration and pity.
Which are?
I'm imagining top off, because then you can see
bad chest
sweat pouring off him as they whip him. But Nathan Leopold was fulfilling a different fantasy altogether. While Loeb got off on crime, he got off on serving Loeb. Since he was 8 years old, his strongest fantasy was of him as the role of a slave to a king. Now, in his fantasy, he was handsome, intelligent, and also the strongest man in the world. But
he was a slave.
But he was still a slave who earned the gratitude of the king by saving his life. Now, when he was offered his freedom, Leopold would refuse and stay as a slave to protect the king from his enemies. But soon, their petty crimes were not enough.
What a fucking simp.
I know, yeah. It's just a sub, innit?
What a sub.
Yeah, but he might want to be a slave. You know, there's people out there who are like, oh yeah, I want to be a sub, I'll be a slave, you know.
It's different, though. That's different, though, isn't it? Like, it's different.
I mean, he's just doing all this crime, just so... We'll get into it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The amount of times they brown. So... But soon their petty crimes were not enough, and an idea hatched one night while driving back from a burglary. That evening on November the 10th, 1923, they had an idea to burglarise Loeb's former fraternity, Zeta Beta Tau. But they had managed to steal only $80 in loose change, a few watches, some penknives, and a typewriter, which will become very important soon. So put that in your... keep that there. Now, it had been a big effort for very little reward, and now and on the journey back to Chicago, Leopold was querulous and argumentative. He complained bitterly that in the 12-hour round trip had not been worth it, but he was really arguing that they didn't have sex as much as they did when they first got together. That old chestnut.
Oh.
So Richard had a solution. If Nathan agreed to carry on aiding him in his crimes, he would brown with him 3 times every 2 months. It's very specific.
That is very specific. 3 times every 2 months.
Yeah, so within a 2-month period, we will brown 3 times. Nathan was so desperate to serve his king, he agreed to it. However, Richard did agree that the fraternity heist had been too easy and was not worth all the effort. A man of his intellect and criminal superiority needed a bigger challenge. And Nathan, probably whispering, "You've missed the points again, my liege," decided that as an Ubermensch needed to cement his status as someone who could and should do whatever they want, whenever they want, for whatever reason. So while they drove back home, they started to discuss what would be the perfect crime. I mean, I stole a pen from Partners when I was like 11, and I haven't been caught. Statute of limitations are up on that.
I stole a crate of beer recently.
Recently? Where from?
I'm not fucking telling you on fucking camera.
It was the co-op. Bet it was the co-op.
Not this one.
I mean, did you just forget to pay?
Yeah.
That's not stealing then, is it?
There was 2 and I bought one and then the other one didn't scan, but I didn't realise and I was in a rush.
So that's just a mistake, really, isn't it? It's not like you've hatched a master plan.
That's what you think.
You didn't. No Ubermensch. You're a fucking Uber nothing. Not even Uber Eats, mate.
Untermensch. Don't call me an Untermensch.
Fucking Untermensch.
Untermensch.
Peasant. Anyway, so they drove back home and they were deciding what was the perfect crime. Now, in 1920s, kidnapping was the fashionable crime and all the big hitters were doing it. So naturally, Leopold and Loeb decided that this was how they would install themselves in the annals of history. Or more like anals.
Anals of history.
Yeah.
I get it.
Am I right?
Am I right?
Yeah,
you know.
Because of Browning.
Browning.
Yeah. So, now there was no use in kidnapping if you don't have a ransom, and they would need an intricate plan for collecting the ransom which would let them avoid detection and also to avoid being identified, since they decided they would have to kill whatever child they kidnapped. So over the next 7 months they would develop their plan of how to commit the perfect kidnapping and get away with the MOIDER. Essentially, it boiled down to luring a boy into a car, knocking him out, driving him to a secluded area near the Indiana state line, killing him, and then hiding the body. Pretty simple, really, isn't it?
It is pretty simple. To what purpose? Like, just for kicks?
Yeah, because they can get away with it. They're Ubermensch. They can do whatever they want, And if they want to kill someone, they can do it. Because they're better than you. They're like MJF. They're better than you, and you know it.
What, Michael J. Fox?
Oh, fucking Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
Oh.
The AEW World Heavyweight Champion.
I don't know who that is, but I thought you meant Michael J. Fox, but he's got Parkinson's, so
he's
he ain't
not
better
fucking
than me.
Ubering anything, is he?
No.
He can't drive.
Can't drive, can't do anything, can't even ride a hoverboard.
I mean, he could.
He couldn't.
Not over water.
You still need the core strength, and he'd be all over the place with his Parkinson's.
He would.
I'm not taking the piss. It's tragic, but
it is tragic.
He's no Marty McFly anymore, is he?
No, but he looks good dancing.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided to hide the corpse in a drainage pipe near some railroad tracks at Wolf Lake, where Nathan Leopold would hunt birds and stuff them for his collection. Just hunt them, stuff them. Yeah. He's the leading authority.
Out of season.
On the
What, he'd stuff his warblers?
They're endangered. So I don't think he'd stuff them. I think he'd be like, no, save the warblers.
Was he just like more murdering other birds?
It's what you did. Then you like get birds and stuff them. You know when you like go to the museum, you see like fucking every animal stuffed. They're from the 1920s.
You heard this weird thing about that, actually. They're going to try and decolonialise Hanley Museum. And it's like, I've been to Hanley Museum a lot. Like, I've spent a lot of time in Hanley Museum. And maybe I'm just being a bit tone deaf, but there is not that much colonial stuff.
Can I just say, the only one person who will understand this is, a few people. My mum, who's watching it, possibly my sister, and Becky.
Your mum watches it.
My mum
Not
loves
Jan's
it.
mum.
My mum loves this show. She can't watch it at night, though, because she laughs too much.
Oh.
She says, can't watch it at night, she laughs too much. She loves it.
Oh, that's good. But she'll know. But yeah, anyway, that's maybe a conversation for another time.
Yeah, because nobody fucking knows what Hanley is. If you were like, oh, the British Museum, everyone would be like, oh, the British Museum?
We've got a good museum. I mean, like, Hanley's shit, but, like, that museum is like a rose that's come up from turds.
What museum?
In Hanley Museum.
You just said Hanley Museum shit.
No, I said Hanley Museum. Hanley is shit, but Hanley Museum is good.
You said Hanley Museum shit. It's on camera.
Good.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I meant. It's good.
Oh,
I said Hanley Museum is like a rose that has come up through this shit.
Okay.
Hanley used to be good, but anyway.
Alright, fucking calm down.
Alright.
So yeah, Richard made the point that if they were...
Spitfire.
Have you finished? Richard made the point that Lesers fucking talk shit all the time, and if they were caught, only one of them would be the murderer. So they decided to both kill the boy by pulling different ends of the same rope wrapped around the boy's neck. That's pretty ingenious. Because they both want to be the murderer.
So it's like one stand to one end and one...
Yeah, because then you can't say, like, if you get caught, like, who's the murderer? Oh, it was him. And they're like, no, we both did it.
That is ingenious.
Yeah.
Also, you could get, like, you could really ramp that up.
Yeah, like, let's not. Because you're about to hear a more ingenious way that they catch the fucking ransom. Are you ready for this?
Go for it.
This is pretty fucking good, actually. So, how to collect ransom money in an anonymous fashion, but still after much discussion, they decided that the best method would be by train. So, the plan was this, and it's fucking brilliant. After the kidnapping, they would telephone the victim's father and tell him to go to a drugstore on 63rd and Blackstone Avenue across from the train station and await another phone call. They would call just before the train was due to arrive, and the father would be instructed to board the train, go to the rear carriage, and look in a telegram box for a letter with further instructions. The letter would tell him to throw the ransom securely wrapped in a cigar box from the train 5 seconds after it passed the distinctive red brick water tower of the Champion Manufacturing Company.
A cigar box?
Yeah, with the money in.
Yeah, but how big's a cigar box? How much money is this?
10,000.
How big's a cigar
Anyway, it
box?
doesn't matter.
Is this like a fucking, like, sort of shipment of cigars? Like a lot of cigars in a big box?
Just listen. If thrown at the right time, it would land close to the 74th Street where Leopold and Loeb would be waiting in a car with the engine running. They practiced this several times and it did actually work.
Wow.
There you go. So all they needed was a car that they didn't own, so they decided to rent one under false identities. So 2 weeks before the kidnapping took place, Nathan Leopold walked into a car rental company and said he was a travelling salesman named Mort Ballard. Hello, I'm Mort Ballard. I'm a travelling salesman. He put down a £400 deposit and put Lewis Mason down as a reference, who of course was Richard Loeb. Now, the day before the kidnapping, they went on a shopping spree and got everything they needed for the kidnapping. For the murder in the ransom note, Nathan brought paper, envelopes and a box of chocolate creams from a stationery store, and then made his way to a drugstore where he purchased a pint of hydrochloric acid and half a pint of ether.
I love how he picked up some, like, chocolate.
Well, that's to lure a kid in, isn't he? Like, do you want these chocolates? But what I think that it was just good. It was like, yeah, can I have a pint of hydrochloric acid, please, and half a pint of ether? But apparently...
1920s, wasn't it?
If you mix them two, they were like the original Speedball. So people, like, they were just like, oh, okay.
What if you inhaled it? Like?
Yeah, mix them together like Speedball. Anyway, Richard, meanwhile, was buying weapons from a hardware store not too far away. He purchased a rope, a sharp-edged chisel with a wooden handle. Now, back home from Nathan, using a note from the Detective Story magazine as a guide, all those magazines that you read didn't come to waste, did they? He typed out a ransom note on the Underwood typewriter that he'd stolen from the fraternity house. Remember that typewriter? Told you about that. In the note, he made no spelling mistakes or grammatical errors, which will come back to haunt them later on. So on May the 21st, 1924, Leopold and Loeb set out to commit the perfect crime. They first dropped off Nathan's car with a family chauffeur, Sven England.
Sven England.
I told him that the brakes needed servicing as they were squeaking. Now, Sven said it would be a quick job, he'd just grease them up, whatever. But Nathan became angry, insisting that he take apart the whole braking system and check it. Then getting into the rental car with Richard, they drove to the Harvard School for Boys, where they knew that any boy who went there they kidnapped would have a wealthy father who could pay the ransom. They had a boy Amanda as well. Little Johnny Levinson.
Little Johnny Levinson.
Little Johnny.
Was he Jewish?
I don't know. They live in an affluent Jewish neighbourhood, so possible.
Well, Levinson sounds pretty Jewish. Don't.
Dodging that bullet. You already got accused of being anti-Semite once. Remember that?
Yeah, what? They took that out of context.
You saying Z Kyle?
It's not anti-Semitic, it's just anti-people.
Oh, fucking hell.
It includes
the amount
Jewish
of editing
people.
I have to do. They stopped him. So they saw
Cheeky little scam.
They saw fucking little Johnny Levinson, and they stopped him and had a chat, and he told him he was going to play baseball at a park. The plan was to watch the game, follow Johnny while he walked home, kidnap him, kill him, and dump the body. But luckily for Johnny, he decided not to go to the game and do something else instead. I don't know what he did. I knew you were going to ask me then, like, what did he do instead?
What did Johnny Levinson do instead?
He lived.
Lived.
When they realised he wasn't coming, they went back to the car. Went back to the car and drove around for 2 hours looking for a suitable victim. Just when they were going to give up, they saw Bobby Franks, who was his second cousin. Now, 14-year-old Bobby Franks was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Bobby was one of the most gifted students at the Harvard School for Boys in the well-to-do South Side neighbourhood of Kenwood. Just 2 weeks earlier, as a member of the school's debate team, he had participated in a debate on the subject of capital punishment, and he had argued against it.
Mm-hmm.
Ironic.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Now, Bobby Franks was walking home when along came a green Willis Knight automobile. Loeb asked Franks to come over to the car and asked him to get in the car to discuss a tennis racket that he'd seen earlier because he wanted to buy one for his brother. Frank was like, oh yeah, I know you. Got in.
You think it's mad that some of them cars, still run? It's like, we're in 2023 and, people do them cars up and they still run, and it's just that's dead cool, that is.
Loeb reached over the seat. He grabbed the boy from behind with his left hand, covering Bobby's mouth to stop him from crying out. Now he brought the chisel down hard and it smashed into the back of the boy's skull. Once again he pounded the chisel into the skull with as much force as possible, but the boy was still conscious.
Didn't do very well, did he?
No. Now Bobby had this is a fucking Ubermensch, is he?
Not an Ubermensch. An Ubermensch would have drove that right through.
Straight
Gone! He'd have been fucking done.
Now Bobby had twisted halfway around in his seat, facing back to Loeb, desperately raising his arms as though to protect himself from the blows. Now Loeb smashed the chisel down 2 more times into Bobby's forehead, but he still struggled for his life. The 4th blow had gashed a large hole in the boy's forehead. Blood from the wound was everywhere, spreading across the seat, splashed onto Leopold's trousers and spilling onto the floor. Loeb reached down and pulled Bobby suddenly upwards over the front seat into the back of the car. He jammed a rag down the boy's throat, stuffing it down as hard as possible. He tore off a large strip of adhesive tape and taped his mouth shut. Finally, the boy's moaning and crying had stopped. Loeb relaxed his grip, and Bobby slid off his lap and lay crumpled at his feet. Leopold and Loeb drove their rented car to a marshland near the Indiana state line, stopping to get hot dogs on the way. Because,
You get hungry, murder's hungry, what?
Yeah, it must be, yeah. Now, when they reached their destination, they pulled the body of Franks from the back seat and, under the cover of darkness, made their way to the drainage pipe where they would dispose of the body. Now, after laying the body on a blanket, they stripped off his clothes and poured a few drops of hydrochloric acid over his face and the rest over his genitals, because they had heard that it was possible to identify a person by their genitals. I mean, if it's
if you've got a birthmark on the end
or
of your
if it's you'd be like, it's my wife's vagina, or something like that.
They are quite personal. Everybody's got a unique member, or...
Yeah, but I don't think it would be like, look at this penis.
It'd have to be a very
belongs to
personal
little Bobby
thing.
Franks.
It's not like you could DNA test a cock or a family.
I mean, if a fucking policeman looked at his penis and went, that's Bobby Franks, I'd be like, right, arrest yourself right now, officer. Why do you know what Bobby Franks' penis looks like?
I've had so many encounters with that little Tarja, little Bobby Franks. It was our little secret.
Yeah, shh. Bobby Franks. Yeah, fucking father.
I'll put the sirens on.
Yeah, the priest come out. He was like, oh, yeah.
Don't stop it. It's the police.
Yeah, it was Father McKee touched him.
It happens in the Church of England as well.
He did. Father McKee touched him in more ways than one.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Father Amwell used to do it. Never to me. Yeah. Always to Nick Phillips. The doe-eyed little flirt.
I know, yeah. Oh. I mean, lads, what was it like that, you were that ugly as a child that a renowned paedophile didn't try to fuck you?
It's hurtful, if anything. I just needed validation that much, Jan. I was throwing myself at him, but he was like, "No, I cast thee out, Satan."
Yeah, I'm not
fucking.
Yeah. Anyway, so they attempted to stuff the body in the concrete drainage pipe, but struggled as it was too narrow. And after much effort, the feet were left sticking out.
That's really.
You would have thought they would have planned this being Ubermensch. And they're like, let's leave them feet out. They could have cut the fucking feet off. Or
they could have cut them off.
Well, they didn't buy anything though, did they?
Or just not.
Just there chiseling away at them.
Or they could have gone like, this doesn't fit. Maybe we should bury them or feed them to wolves. I don't know.
Yeah, because there's the wolves of Chicago.
I'm sure.
Where you're like, oh, feed them to the bulls. I've heard there are bulls in Chicago. They play the basketball.
All I'm saying is, like, I mean, like, that's my ignorance.
All you're saying is you're talking shit.
Well, yeah, essentially. But...
I'm glad... No, stop there.
No.
I'm glad we're in agreement.
I'm just saying that I don't understand the flora and fauna of Chicago, Jan. That is not something that is within my intellectual remit.
Well, then. Maybe you should fucking learn about it.
It's just that they have wolves and bears and shit in America. I don't know that's all over America. I don't know the wolf population of the Chicago, Illinois fucking area.
Right, for the next video, I want you to find out.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll have that discussion. What is the wolf population of Chicago, Illinois?
I'm going to say 0.
I reckon there's a population. But they've got woods and shit.
Right.
Do you think Al Capone just went and wiped out all the, like, fucking predators?
No, I think that was done years before when they built a city over it.
It's not like Britain where we've not got anything. They've got, like, fucking... Not in actual Chicago, Illinois. They've got,
you
like,
said fucking Chicago, Illinois.
They've got fucking suburban areas. There's going to be wolves and like
no
forest
wolves.
and like no rural
wolves.
areas.
There is no wolves in fucking Chicago.
There is no wolves in the city of Chicago.
In the city of
Chicago.
Chicago.
Or in Chicago as the whole.
You know Chicago's a city, right?
Yeah, I know Chicago's a city.
You're talking about the state of Illinois now.
Okay, now that is where I'm getting confused.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to shut up now.
Good. This is what I have to fucking work with.
Sorry. Illinois is the state. But they say Chicago, Illinois. Because
Yes.
there's Chicago in Illinois.
Because they fucking say here, like, oh yeah, I live in, fucking Burslem, Stoke-on-Trent.
So there's no wolves in Burslem.
Of course there fucking isn't. There's no wolves in Britain.
They're trying to reintroduce them in
Yes,
Scotland.
but they're not, are they? They're not going to fucking put them in Burslem, are they?
Look how angry this is making you.
It's because I'm fucking right. Anyway, this is fucking key to this now.
Couldn't like a wolf?
No.
Couldn't a wolf
Right,
possibly?
no more drinks for you. No.
Oh, don't do that.
No more drinks for you.
Okay.
Right.
Keep going.
Quiet. Now, this is key.
This is key.
Yes.
Okay.
Plot.
Okay.
Right, you ready?
Ready.
Right. So when they were climbing out of the ditch, Richard heard a metallic clink. And after searching with his flashlight, he couldn't find anything, so he assumed it was nothing that could incriminate them. Fucking stupid boy. The boys made their way back to Chicago, mailed off the ransom letter, and returned to the Loeb home, where they burned Frank's clothes in the basement furnace. Meanwhile, around dinner time, Bobby had not come home, nor had he contacted his parents, Jacob and Flora Franks. Flora Franks.
How would they contact him like then?
Telegram.
Would it be? Would he have to have gone?
I mean,
to,
he's rich, and so he probably sent like a fucking chauffeur.
A show. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Anyway, his brother Jack and his sister Josephine had no idea where he was. Perhaps he was playing tennis at the Loebs, because they were neighbours. Jack suggested it, but when his father looked over at the Loebs tennis courts, Bobby was nowhere to be seen. While Flora called Bobby's classmates, Jacob contacted the headmaster of the school to find out if Bobby had gotten himself locked into the school building. I mean, that must have happened before.
I was going to say, does sound like that's happened before, doesn't it?
Hello. Like, oh no, it'd be like, if he's American, he'd be like, hello there, who there? It's
from Chicago.
Yeah, that's Boston, isn't it?
That was
Chicago.
Boston,
the only thing I know of Chicago is people are like, don't shoot me. No, he'd just be like, yeah, is he in school again? As he let him like that? No, he's not locked in. Oh, okay. So yeah, he wasn't in the school, obviously. So he called Samuel Eccleston, a prominent lawyer and friend, to determine what to do. Right. Eccleston, I mean, it's wrong, isn't it? If, like, your son's missing, then your husband's like, I'm just lawyering up.
Yeah, you'd ask questions.
I would.
Yeah. That's sketchy. That's very sketchy.
Now, Eccleston and Jacob searched the entire school building but found no sign of Bobby. Now, while they were gone, Flora got... I love how he went to the school. The master's like, no, he's not there. We'll search for the little shit. He's probably got the fucking crawl space again.
Go to the crawl space. It's up in the attic, reading the never-ending story.
Oh, I don't know. I was talking to the people the other day, and they said I can make you cry with 2 photos. Showed them the bit from photo of the...
Artax.
And my girl, where it's like, his face hurting him. Where are his glasses? He can't see without his glasses.
Can't see without his glasses. Can't see. Oh, fuck it. I just laugh at them now.
Jen, our researcher, sent her that, and she was like, I laughed all the way through that movie.
What? Which one? My Girl?
Yeah, fucking...
It's ridiculous. I don't get the...
monster, Jen.
I don't get the, like, fucking feels, like, for that. I don't particularly get it for, like, fucking... Never-Ending Story. I just remember watching Never-Ending Story and feeling absolute, like, fucking fear. Like, when's that wolf thing gonna turn up again? Shit.
I still haven't got my racing snail.
There's no racing snail. Also, why did the fucking dragon in it look like a fucking shih tzu? It's not a fucking dragon.
Calm down.
It's not a fucking dragon. Stop doing dragons wrong.
No. So, yeah, while they were out searching the building for that cheeky scamp, Flora got a phone call. A man calling himself George Johnson, which is totally not a fake name. Like, hello, I'm George Johnson. And he told her, your son has been kidnapped. He is all right. There will be further news in the morning.
Further news.
There'll be further news in the morning. Okay, cheers. Don't go to school. Why? He's been kidnapped. It'll be fine. Flora fainted, though. She was like, ah. Just fainted.
I've got the vapours.
Yeah, she was like, oh, mercy, I got the vapours.
Bring the smelling salts.
Yeah, she remained unconscious, though, until her husband and Alison came home, and then they were like, bring the smelling salts for Flora. At 2 a.m, Jacob and Eccleston went to the police, but since none of the police officials that Eccleston knew were on duty at that hour, they decided to come back in the morning. Let's not report this kidnapped child, because I don't know you.
I've had no further news.
Yeah,
sir.
Can I report
Until
it?
Then we shall
What's
stay
your name?
stoic.
No, I don't know you. Don't know you. Don't know you. No, I'm not reporting this. So, after they made the call, the boys made their way to Nathan Leopold's home for a celebratory drink. But when Nathan was driving Richard home later that night, they realised that they'd forgotten to dispose of the murder weapon. I think they put all the planning into how to get the ransom.
Yeah, because that was like sound.
That was like, okay, we throw it from a train, we've got it here, and the train goes this, and the angle...
It's worked before, let's do it again.
Yeah.
How do we get rid of the body? Acid.
Yeah, but...
And a pipe.
Yeah, let's like put it on his wedge, because we don't want the police to identify him. Anyway, they still had the murder weapon. So the Ubermensch Richard Loeb, the master criminal, the man with the plan, simply threw it out the window, assuming no one would see it. Just throw it. Throw it out the window. Fuck it off. But he was wrong, Les.
He was wrong?
He was very wrong.
Why was he wrong?
Because a night watchman named Bernie Hunt heard the noise of the chisel hitting the pavement, and he went to look.
Bernie Hunt? What a...
Sounds like a 1970s fucking comedian, doesn't it?
Does sound like a 1970s. Like one that you'd like see in working men's clubs.
Yeah, your dad'd be like, oh, Bernie Hunt's on.
He knows what's going on.
He's blue, he is, he's blue.
Blue.
Yeah, anyway, so he went look for this noise that he heard, and he discovered a blood-stained murder weapon. He looked up and saw a distinctive red Willis Knight sports car with nickel bumpers racing away. Nickel bumpers.
Thanks for clarifying.
So they also needed to take care of a blood-stained rental car, and the next morning Sven England found the boys scrubbing a mysterious red stain. Now, when questioned, Richard explained that they had spilled wine in the car and would appreciate Sven not saying anything to his parents, as the boys had been bootlegging wine, and with it being the year of Prohibition, it wasn't totally implausible. I don't think he said it that nice. Barry was like, "You keep your fucking mouth shut, Sven. Okay? What you do, you keep it shut, I'll fucking kill you. We were bootlegging wine. We spilt some. Don't fucking tell anyone."
That would have been a pretty good alibi in a weird way. Like, we're bootlegging wine.
Yeah.
Less of a sentence than murdering a child.
It is. But around this time...
If they were really the Untermensch, they would have known that. Übermensch, yeah.
But yeah, around the same time as Sven was being threatened, the Franks family received a special delivery letter which said, "Dear Sir, as you no doubt know by this time, your son has been kidnapped. Allow us to assure you that he is at present well and safe. You need to fear no physical harm for him, provided you live carefully to the following instructions and such others which we will receive by future communications. Should you, however, disobey any of our instructions, even slightly, his death will be the penalty. Number 1. For obvious reasons, make absolutely no attempt to communicate with either police, authorities, or any private agency. Should you already have communicated with the police, allow them to continue their investigations, but do not mention this letter." So it's like, you probably already called him, but don't mention this letter to him. But what
that's very much how it comes off.
He didn't know anyone on duty, so you're safe. Number 2. Secure before noon today $10,000. This money must be composed entirely of old bills of the following denominations: $2,000 and $20 bills, $8,000 and $50 bills. The money must be old. Any attempt to include new or marked bills
No, you
cannot. Will render the entire venture futile. Go on.
So, like, this is what old bills, right?
Like old money, so it's not like the new money. So it's not like brand new notes that they can trace. It's just money that's been around for ages.
Okay, is this then why that, like, when they bring new, like, sort of notes and coins into circulations, they become obsolete and you can't use them in shops?
I have no fucking idea.
Is this... Because no, I've heard this, like, term, like, old money, like, before, like, that. Not in the terms of old money, like aristocracy, but, like...
No idea.
That's interesting. I'm going to have to research that. It's fascinating.
While you're researching your fucking walls of Chicago.
Yeah, there was some... Yeah, because I bet you there's fucking walls... I'm gonna fucking...
In Chicago.
They could, like, enter into Chicago.
No. You were saying that they lived in Chicago.
I'm not saying they lived in fucking...
You were fucking saying that. And then
I thought you meant, like, the general... I got Illinois and Chicago mixed up. We're really doing this again.
That's because you're fucking...
I'm not. I just got fucking... I thought the city was called Chicago, Illinois. Don't touch me.
Number 3. The money should be placed in a large cigar box, or if this is impossible, in a heavy cardboard box, securely closed and wrapped in white paper. The wrapping paper should be sealed at all openings with sealing wax. Number 4. Have the money with you, prepared as directed above, and remain at home after 1 o'clock. See that the telephone is not in use. But unbeknownst to Leopold Loeb or the Franks family, Bobby's body had already been found by a Polish pipe worker named Bobby Minky. Bobby Minky.
Got in there like a mink.
He spotted the feet poking out of the drainage pipe in the early hours of the morning and discovered the naked body of Bobby Franks.
Why are we laughing?
Because he's just walking along, he's like, some feet sticking out of that. I'm like, oh, it's Bobby Franks. I recognise that penis anywhere. Bobby Minky should have been looked in.
That's more melty than it usually looks.
Yes. He contacted the police and then, with the help of others, pulled the body from the pipe because it was stuck. That is that. While searching the area... That's the noise it made. That's also the noise of the Browning as well.
Yeah, the Browning now.
Yeah.
Because it's like a suction.
Yeah. Anyway, while searching the area for the boys' clothes, another pump worker found a pair of expensive and distinctive eyeglasses with tortoiseshell frames.
Tortoiseshell?
Yeah.
Classic.
They assumed they belonged to Bobby, but they didn't. They belonged to Richard Loeb. Remember when he heard something clink?
That's what it was.
He dropped his glasses.
That's weird, because something clinked earlier with us.
Yeah, that was the metal pipe that I put up there. Fell down.
Oh, we've located what that was.
I literally told you what it was.
Yeah, I don't remember. I wasn't paying attention.
Because you're drunk into a stupor.
I'm not drunk into a stupor.
You don't listen to me, you don't pay attention to me.
I do. Don't be like that now. I made you a tea before we started.
Bring me tea bags. Anyway, meanwhile, Jacob Franks went to get the money. Eccleston called his friend who was chief of detectives for the Chicago Police Department. An enterprising newspaperman had also been tipped off there was a kidnapping involving the Franks boy. He also heard of the boy that had been found dead in a culvert near Wolf Lake. A probable drowning.
Wolf Lake! There we fucking go! Wolf Lake.
Yeah, that was out by the Indiana state line.
Oh, so they can't cross from Indiana and go into Chicago.
Do you know how long that is?
Wolves are a lot fitter than us human beings.
You really think they're just going to do that and then go, okay, let's go.
I think if a wolf is hungry enough, yeah.
I don't think it will be. Could get hot dogs on the way and then turn back.
No, because they've got no financial means.
Yeah, but if you were a hot dog vendor, right, and you saw a pack of wolves coming, you just fucking throw your fucking hot dogs at them.
Yeah, okay. You're not wrong there.
I know I'm not, because I'm right.
It sounds like you've been in that situation.
I mean, if I ever saw a dog coming at me and I had a hot dog, I'd be
just
like,
one dog.
Yeah, if it was a big fucking dog. I had a nightmare last night, right? That there was a big fucking dog ripping apart other dogs. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, but I kept waking up, right, because I was grinding my teeth. Because I was that.
Were you that dog?
I don't know, but yeah.
That was a
but yeah, I had to go.
What did the dog look like, Jan?
It was like a big lurcher, but it had like curly hair, but it looked like it had mange as well, so it had bits sticking up like fucking clumps of hair.
So like a mangy Afghan?
Yeah.
It's fucking really interesting. Psychologically. Yeah. You need to do some shadow work, baby.
Mate, I'm telling you, fucking Carl Jung's also stop it. Carl Jung's come back.
Carl Jung's
just like, hey, just
don't. This way lies madness.
He's like, stop drinking. Yeah, he's just like, don't bother with this shadow work. Just, you might as well kill yourself right now. Yeah, so
you're wasting.
They thought that the boy was a probable drowning victim, but he relayed the description to the
when stuck in a fucking pipe. I mean, water comes.
Well, no, he hadn't heard he was in the pipe. He heard he was in a culvert.
Oh, in a culvert. Yeah.
So he relayed the description of the dead boy to Mr. Franks, who did not think he matched his son. So Frank's brother-in-law went to check it out. He was like, "That doesn't sound like my son's penis."
It does not sound like my son's.
Alan, go and look at this boy's penis. When the telephone rang, it was George Johnson. And he told Eccleston...
Which is dead fucking ironic when you think of it.
He said, "I am sending a yellow cab for you. Get in and go to the drugstore at 1465 East 63rd Street." Eccleston handed the phone to Jacob and the message was repeated. In the trauma of the events, both men immediately forgot the address to the drugstore. This is your son?
These are the most laissez-faire.
He's lawyered up.
In the world.
And it's like, yeah, go here. Okay. Go here. Okay. Can you remember? I thought you'd remember. No, I haven't remembered. How are you going to get your son back now? But the phone rang again, and it was Jacob's brother-in-law. The boy that had been found dead in the culvert was indeed Bobby Franks. Even with a melted penis, he knew who he was. So with the investigation of Bobby Franks' death went into high gear, unfortunately an opportunity was lost where Jacob Franks and Samuel Eccleston forgot the address of the drugstore where they went to await the instructions from the kidnapper. So they could have gone there and said, okay, yeah, we can find this, give the police some clues, but they were like, no. So a yellow cab arrived at the Franks' house, sent by the kidnapper, George Johnson. George Johnson. And the driver, and he said, right, you know where we're going, don't you? The driver was like, I've told fuck all, mate. I'm a taxi driver. You tell me where you're going. I don't tell you where you're going. So shortly afterwards, at the Vanderbilt...
They do ask you directions, though.
Yeah, but they don't
You
know.
notice this, like round here just recently, like with taxi drivers.
I drive. I haven't got a taxi in years.
It's just, they're like, "Where's that then, mate? Which is the quickest way?" It's like, you fucking tell me. You've got a sat nav in front of you, prick.
Put it in your sat nav.
Really fucking winds me up. It's like, I am paying you to take me to a place, and that includes the navigation of this. I expect to get into this car and have to direct you all the
talking.
way.
Anyway, so at the Van der Bogert and Ross drugstore on East 63rd Street, a phone call came in for a Mr. Franks. The caller was told there was no Mr. Franks there. A few minutes later, another call came from Mr. Franks, along with the description of Jacob Franks. The druggist told the caller there was no man in the store of that description. It's like fucking when Bart phones up most time. He's like, yeah, can I speak to Hugh, please?
Hugh.
Surname Direction. Yeah, can I see Hugh Direction? I want to see a Hugh Direction. But yeah, no. So there was no man there, so they're like, oh, what the fuck's going on here? Not two people couldn't fucking forgot the address of this drugstore. They did. So several rewards were publicised. Jacob Franks offered $5,000. Police Chief Morgan Collins offered another $1,000. The two major Chicago newspapers, the Tribune and the Herald Examiner, offered $5,000 each. State Attorney Robert E. Crow took charge of the investigation. Now, Crow's assistant, Bern Cronson, the nephew of Samuel Ettelson, was assigned full-time along with other two on Crow's staff. Now, Crow, a 45-year-old politician known for his pugnacity and stubbornness, was trying to establish himself as a top Republican in the Chicago area. Pugnacity.
Pugnant, like being pugnacious.
Yeah. Do you like that word?
Oh, that works. It's going into
I'll look that up.
That's going to go into my lexicon.
So a favourable solution to the Franks case would go a long way in achieving that goal. So basically, he's like, if I sort this out, I'm going to be like fucking Rudy Giuliani here, who hasn't been born yet. But I am.
Oh, yeah. Poor little Rudy Giuliani.
Sweating coming down his face. Oh. The ransom note the police scientist determined was typed by a novice typist on an Underwood typewriter. Coroner Oscar Wolfe told the press that only an educated person...
Wolfe again? Oscar Wolfe.
He's not an actual wolf.
There's a wolf in Chicago.
He's got two F's in these names, so it's not Wolf.
It's a wolf
he could
in Chicago.
Only an educated person could have drafted the letter in such perfect English. I mean, it did sound pretty good, didn't it?
It did.
Hence, therefore, put that in. Yo, you need to give us some money.
Hey!
Oh.
Yo! Hey!
And they'd be like, it's New York gangsters. Fucking New York gangsters. Come in here, see? Anyway, this would signify intelligence, a dangerous attribute in a criminal. Greed would be the controlling passion, and dead or alive, they intended to cash in on Robert Franks, the millionaire's son. Given that the ransom note was written by someone well educated, the police focused upon 3 teachers at the Harvard school where Bobby Franks was attended. They were taken to the police station and grilled for hours while their apartments were searched. One of the teachers was released, but the other 2 were kept in custody. The small horn-ring glasses found near the body did not belong to the boy. Now, they only found this out because when the parents went to view the body, they had the glasses on, they were like, what the fuck are these? They were like, oh, they're his glasses. They were like, he didn't wear glasses. And then they were like, oh shit. But police, these aren't his. Might be vital evidence that we've touched, possibly washed. It's not their fault, is it?
That's early days, yeah.
Bobby Minky, innit?
Yeah, that Minky.
So the frames were made of xylenite and were chewed at the ends. The prescription was very common. The chances of finding the owner of these glasses seemed slim, but every attempt was made. The newspapers carried photos of the glasses and the police contacted optical companies in the area. On Friday the 23rd, Richard Loeb was at his Zeta Beta Tau fraternity house with Howard Mayer, who was the campus liaison to the Evening American. Loeb suggested they tried to locate the drugstore that the kidnapper had instructed Jacob Franks to go with to the ransom money. Just as the 2 of them were about to check the various drugstores, 2 Daily News reporters, one of whom was a ZBT member, Zeta Beta Tau.
Yeah, Zeta Beta. It's a great name, actually, isn't it? Zeta Beta.
came into the fraternity house, decided to go with them. Eventually, they found the Van der Bogert and Ross drugstore and confirmed that they had been the two calls previous day for Mr. Franks. "This is the place!" Loeb shrieked enthusiastically to others. "This is what comes from reading detective stories." And also, doing the crime. Mulroy, one of the reporters, asked Loeb if he knew the murdered boy, and Loeb told him he had, and then smiled and said, "If I were going to murder anyone, I would murder just a cocky little son of a bitch, just like Bobby Franks."
Too soon. Too soon.
Rein it in a bit and be like, "Yeah, I knew him. Lovely boy. Can't believe anyone murdered him."
You don't like seriously. He was a lovely boy. Very, very nice penis.
Yeah. Nice penis. Recognise it anyway.
Anyway.
When the police talked to the game warden for the area of Wolf Lake, they found that one frequent visitor to the area was Nathan Leopold. Police had a servant awaken the young man so he could come down to the police station for questioning. Young Nathan Leopold was questioned, but the answers he gave about his bird-watching expeditions were very credible and didn't arouse any. Yeah, he was like, "I am the fucking Daddy Mac of the endangered warbler." And they're like,
they're the sort of details, indigenous details, that you really need to get away with shit. It's just like, what were you doing this weekend? Because you were unaccounted for. It's like,
bird watching.
There was bird watching. It's like, what kind of bird? Lesser spotted grebe.
Yeah.
All right.
But the answers he gave about his bird watching expeditions were very credible, to arouse any suspicion whatsoever. Now, the cab driver came forward with the story of two well-dressed young men who hired him to drive them to the home of Jacob Franks. Once there, the two men sat in the cab for several minutes but didn't get out. Then he drove them to another destination. 8 days after the murder, police discovered that the hinges on a pair of the eyeglasses were very unique. Had only been sold on 3 pairs of glasses in the Chicago area.
Well, that's interesting.
One of those pairs of glasses belonged to Nathan Leopold. So State Attorney Crowe was very sensitive about questioning the son of a prominent family in the police station, with voracious reporters swarming around. Instead, on May 29th, 1924, Nathan Leopold was taken to the room of a LaSalle hotel where he could be questioned discreetly. Now, police arrived at his house in the afternoon just before one of Leopold's classes on birds. They asked him if he'd lost his glasses and he said that he hadn't. Later they searched the house, but the glasses could not be found. Eventually, Leopold confirmed that his eyeglasses were his, and he must have lost them a few days before the death of Bobby Franks, when he had gone birding at the Wolf Lake on Saturday and Sunday, May 17th and 18th, with 2 other boys. He said that he had tripped and the glasses probably had fallen out of his breast pocket at the time. So one of Crowe's assistants had Leopold put the glasses in his breast pocket and recreate the fall. Now, after a few times...
Right.
Yeah. After a few times, they did actually fall out, but most of the times they stayed in. So then the questioning became more intense. When questioned about his activities on the day of the murder, initially Leopold was vague. Finally, he admitted that he had spent most of the day with his friend Richard Loeb, eating, drinking and looking for birds in Lincoln Park.
Lincoln Park?
Yeah, not Lincoln Park, Lincoln, as in the President Lincoln.
Oh, right, okay.
After dinner, they picked up two...
Doesn't really matter.
Doesn't. Anyway, they picked up 2... It was shit,
anyway.
They picked up 2 girls and drove around until they went to Leopold's house, where his aunt and uncle were waiting for him to be driven home. As he was pressed for details after detail, Leopold answered quickly and calmly. The inquisitors turned to the questions about his personal life. He owned a Hammond multiplex typewriter, which the police confiscated, and agreed that he had sufficient education to have composed the ransom note. He also agreed that the note did contain some legal wording, although it was not written by a lawyer. Leopold had not known the Franks family, but had been following the case just like everybody else in Chicago. After police had confiscated some of his letters, Leopold admitted that he had planned to translate the works of an Italian writer who wrote about the acts of sexual perversion. However, he said he'd never engaged in any sexual acts with his friend Richard Loeb.
Fucking liar.
It wasn't one to try him, was it? 3 times in 2 months.
3 times in 2 months.
Leopold was questioned until 4 a.m, after which he was taken to the police station to sleep until the next round of questioning. He did not realise it, but his friend Richard Loeb had been picked up for questioning shortly after Leopold had been. Like Leopold, Loeb was interrogated in another room at the LaSalle Hotel. Now, Loeb told a different story than Leopold about their activities on the day of Bobby Franks' murder. He said that he and Leopold he was with him during the afternoon, but stated that they had partied at dinner time. Loeb didn't remember what they did the night of the murder. Unsuspectingly, a mutual friend of the two boys delivered a critical message from Leopold to Loeb. Babe, which was his nickname.
No,
Called him Babe, yeah.
Called him Babe.
Only sociopaths call each other Babe. Said to the truth about the two girls. Tell the police what you did with him. You can't get in any worse trouble than you are in now. He said you'd understand. Suddenly Loeb's story and Leopold's became the same. Some of the details were vague because Loeb had said he'd been drinking heavily and had forgotten. Crow and his assistants began to believe the boys' story. The state attorney took them out for a lavish dinner. Afterwards, the boys chatted amiably with newspapermen. I don't blame the police for holding me, Leopold told the Tribune. I was at the culvert on Saturday and Sunday before the glasses were found, and it is quite possible I lost my glasses there. Two other reporters knew
Was he fishing out of season again?
No, he was birding. Looking at birds. Two other reporters knew that...
It's by the lake, though. We could double up. You can do both.
Possibly. But Leopold belonged to a law student study group. From the study group members, they learned that Leopold usually typed up the study sheets on his Hammond, but that at least once he had used a portable typewriter. They got their hands on a couple of the study sheets that Leopold had prepared and compared them with the typing on the ransom note. The typing from some of the study sheets was identical to the typing on the ransom note. How is it identical? It's not like handwriting, is it? It's fucking typing.
It could mean like sort of phraseology and sentence structure.
Ah, I get you. Anyway, Crow said his assistants kept digging. On May 31st, they interviewed the Leopold chauffeur, Sven.
Sven?
Now, Sven, who was told to shut up.
Shut the fuck up, Sven.
He didn't. Shut up, he did not. On the day of the murder, the chauffeur had worked on Leopold's car all day long. He maintained that the car had been in the garage until late that evening when he went home. The boys had told the police that they had used Leopold's car as they drove around the afternoon and the evening of Bobby Franks' death. The police interrogated them intensely in separate rooms. When Loeb was confronted with the lie about the car, he asked who told them. After hearing it was Leopold's chauffeur, Loeb went pale and asked to see Crow. He was like, oh, fucking Sven, you bastard. Loeb ended his conversation by saying, I just wanted to say that I offer no excuse, but I am fully convinced that neither the idea nor the act would have occurred to me if it had not been for the suggestion and stimulus of Leopold. Furthermore, I do not believe that I would have been capable of having killed Franks. Fucking
liar.
Throw your mate under the bus. Maybe if you'd let him brown a few more times, he would have been a bit better, wouldn't he?
I was going to say, if it had been like, I don't know, 3 times in 3 months.
Well, just like let him brown you every night. Confronted with Loeb's confession, Leopold had little he could do but confess himself. The confessions were very similar except for there were some minor details and one major factor. Leopold claimed that Loeb had killed Bobby, whereas Loeb had claimed that Leopold had committed the murder. I mean, it's a bit weird how they were both like, oh yeah, let's both kill him by strangling him with a bit of rope. That would have been a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, much easier.
Yeah. Anyway, initially the police and the press decided to believe Loeb and treat Leopold as the evil genius who had dominated his affable friend with his superior
With a name
intellect.
like Leopold.
I know, yeah. It's German sounding, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what them Germans are like.
Yeah.
Sorry for reading it.
You know what you did.
In some ways, it didn't matter which of the two had actually killed Bobby. They were both hanged for the premeditated murder and kidnapping, according to State's Attorney Crow. Now, the story of Leopold and Loeb dominated the newspapers. It was the crime of the century. Because this is like two rich kids. This is like, the guy who owns Sears, his son killing people. This is like Prince Andrew being a nonce.
I love how this is considered in these times, like the crime of the century.
It's only 20 years old, isn't it? I remember going to the cinema to watch Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, right? And there was a trailer on for Showgirls, and this is in early January, and it said the sexiest film of the year. I'm like, It's only a few days old.
Also, you've got like fucking Al Capone.
I mean,
at this time,
yeah, you got
like
Al Capone
doing
at this time.
Al Capone shit.
Just there being crazy with syphilis.
dancing the Charleston
on a flagpole. The public was aghast at the crime and the newspapers demanded swift retribution. It should not be allowed to hang on, poisoning all thoughts and feelings. Every consideration of public interest demands that it be carried through and to its end at once, wrote the Herald and Examiner. Once the ink of the confessions were dry, Crowe took the boys to search for evidence. The clerk was found who sold Leopold the hydrochloric acid, and he had poured on Bobby Franks' body to disguise his features and circumcision. The chisel that he was circumcised, but it's not what it's going to do, melt the skin into a foreskin.
You might have.
You'd recognise that penis anyway.
You can do anything.
I mean, you'd recognise that penis anyway.
It was a recognisable penis.
I imagine it was. Yeah, I mean, you probably got more experience in looking at men's penises than me.
Been into a lot of like gymnasium changing rooms.
Why do people just when you go into the fucking changing rooms at a gym? Why do you always got that one guy just fucking bollocks it around naked?
It's a test of strength.
It's not. It's just like, dude.
It's not. It's utter like sort of projection.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, though. Tell you what I hate. It's like when people don't realise their personal space.
Oh, well, like when they're talking to you with like bollock naked with the foot up.
Just general like lack of awareness of personal space. So like I had this one like sort of instance like when I'd like been to the gym and I'd like come out of the shower and my like fucking clothes and shit are all up on the bench and I'm getting, drying myself down, getting changed. And I bends down to pull my pants back on.
Next thing you know, bloke's penis in you.
No, it was worse in many respects, in a low-key way.
I don't think this happened. I think this is a fantasy you have of being fucked in the gym.
This is not what happened. What happened, it's a lot more mundane, but it's low-key aggressive, and I think this guy knew what he was doing. I think this was a message.
He was raping you.
He wasn't raping me. You're making this fantasy up.
I'm not. This is just what happened, Les.
This isn't what happened.
I was in the gym changing room and I was bending over to pull up my pants and we're talking about a man invading my personal space. He invaded more than your personal space. He invaded your shitter.
He nearly invaded my shitter, but not with his member. He bent down at this... No, he bent down at the same time and our buttocks touched for an instant.
But isn't that like an actual thing?
It shouldn't be a thing, though. That's an act of aggression.
And then the next thing you know, he's sucking you off. Weird.
He didn't suck me off.
Our
eyes met and I said, I'm not alright with this. And then he walked away.
After he raped you.
No, Jan. It was after I raped him, I'll have you know. And...
Anyway, sure. The chisel that killed the boy was retrieved from a man who had seen it thrown from the car. Bobby's shoes that had been discarded on the side of the road were found after a long search. Now, Crowe was very satisfied with the evidence that he found. He said, "We have the most conclusive evidence I've ever seen in a criminal case." During the day, Jacob Loeb, Richard Dunkel and Benjamin Bacharach was a successful attorney, tried to find out where the boys were being held, but they were not told. The two boys were in desperate need of an attorney. Now, later that evening, Jacob Loeb went to the apartment of one of the country's most brilliant lawyers. Loeb got the 67-year-old Clarence Darrow and his wife out of bed. Darrow had made the name for himself championing the underdog and fighting against capital punishment. Now, get them a life sentence instead of death, Loeb begged for his nephew and Leopold. That's all we ask. We'll pay anything, only for God's sake, don't let them hang. Now, Darrow took the case, but not for a fee. But by defending these two boys, he had a unique opportunity to combat the death penalty. The case was getting so much publicity around the country and around the world that it was a rare chance for him to be widely heard on his capital punishment soapbox. The boys had already done irreparable harm to their defence, though, not only in their confessions, but in helping locate evidence that would be used against them, and by running off their mouths to captors, newspapermen, and anyone else who'd give them an audience. Leopold told one reporter, "Why, we even rehearsed the kidnapping at least 3 times, carrying it through on all the details, lacking only the boy we were to kidnap and kill. It was just an experiment. It is easy for us to justify as an entomologist in impaling a beetle on a pin."
Yeah, no, it's not. I'm like, what the fuck?
Loeb told the police captain, This thing will be the making of me. I'll spend a few years in jail and I'll be released. I'll come out to a new life." The police took careful notes, and the newspapermen wrote furiously as the boys kept talking and talking. Now, Darrow was on the case the next day. Sunday, June the 1st, he waited with Jacob Loeb and Benjamin Bacharach until the boys had returned from another evidence-gathering expedition. They demanded to see the 2 boys, but were refused. Crowe had 3 traditional alienist forensic scientists lined up to interview the boys that afternoon to confirm they were indeed sane as well as guilty. Early the next morning, Darrow and Bacharach were in Crowe's office demanding that the 2 boys be moved to the county jail where he and Bacharach and their families could see them. Again, Crowe refused so that his alienists could get additional evidence of their sanity.
Are alienists still a thing?
Psychiatrists.
Yeah, I know, like, because of that show, the aliens, so they're psychiatrists now. And that's what they used to be called, alienists.
Yeah. So Crowe assumed that Darrow would plead them not guilty by reason of insanity, and he wanted to be sure that the prosecution had enough evidence of the boys' sanity before their lawyers cut off their damaging testimony. However, Darrow had with him an order from Judge John R. Cavalli, and the boys were allowed to meet with their attorneys before being confined to the county jail. "Be polite, be courteous," Darrow told them, "but don't give Crowe any more help. Just keep quiet and refuse to answer questions." Now, the boys were pampered in everyday life, and the boys were also pampered in jail. Steen's restaurant catered to their need for good food, cigarettes, and liquor. Now, on June the 5th, 1924, the grand jury indicted the 2 boys on 11 counts of murder and 16 counts of kidnapping. I don't know how. 11 counts of murder. You killed one.
Yeah.
So
seems a bit unfair.
It does, doesn't it? Just like, we're going to ramp this up. On July 21st, 1924, the case of the people against Nathan Leopold Jr. and Richard Loeb opened in Chief Justice and Criminal Court John R. Cavalli's courtroom. Darrow approached the bench and began to speak in a low voice. First, he assured the court that he was not going to try and have the trial moved elsewhere, nor was he going to try and stop the prosecutors from separating the murder indictments from the kidnapping indictments. "We want to state frankly here that no one in this case believes that these defendants should be released or are competent to be. We believe that they should be permanently isolated from society. After long reflection and thorough discussion, we have determined to make a motion to this court for each of the defendants in each case to withdraw our pleas of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty." Now, everyone in the courtroom went fucking mental at this. They'd expected Darrow to plead them not guilty by reason of insanity. But this was a clever move by Darrow, and he discussed it with the families but didn't tell the boys until that morning. He said, "Crowe has you indicted for both murder and for kidnapping. Now, he can try you on one charge, say murder. If he got less than a hanging verdict, he could turn around and try you on the other charge. There's only one way to deprive him of that second charge, to plead guilty to both charges before he has an opportunity to withdraw one of them. That's why the element of surprise is absolutely necessary." Basically saying, say guilty, because then if they don't get you the death penalty straight away, you can't try it again for one. Because you can't do double jeopardy on it, can you?
No.
Also, this was a way they could escape trial by a jury, because if they had pleaded insanity, they would have to face a jury. So they've pleaded guilty. Doesn't it go to a jury? Yeah. So they're saying, yeah, I'm guilty. So State's Attorney Robert E. Crowe made an opening statement.
Oh, yeah.
"The evidence in this case will show that Nathan Leopold Jr. is a young man 19 years old, and the other defendant, Richard Loeb, is a young man of 19 years. That they are both sons of highly respected and prominent citizens of this community, and that their parents gave them every advantage wealth and indulgence could give to the boys. Now, these have attended the best schools in the community and have from time to time had private tutors." I don't know what that's got to do with anything.
No. Also, is this guy from Louisiana?
He is now.
He is now.
Yeah. He is in this film. These young men behaved as a majority of young men in the social set behaved, with the exception that they developed a desire to gamble, and gamble for large stakes, the size of the stakes being such that their wealthier companions could not sit with them. The evidence will further show that along in the October and November of last year that these two defendants entered into a conspiracy, the purpose of which was to gain money, and in order to gain it they were ready and willing to commit cold-blooded murder. Now Darrow responded with the prosecution. Now, we shall insist in this case, Your Honour, that terrible as this is, terrible as any killing is, there will not be with precedent if two boys of this age should be hanged by the neck until dead. It will be in no way bring Robert Franks back and add peace to the security of this community. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's like, I buy that they were definitely from Chicago.
I'm just a...
I say.
Country lawyer. I don't know fancy terms.
You soggy bottom boys.
Yeah. Darrow, so during the trial, Leopold and Loeb still continued to be cocky little knobheads. On July 23rd, before the court convened, Loeb told reporters that he had an important statement to make.
An important statement.
We are united in one great and profound hope for today, Loeb said pompously. Mr. Leopold and I have gone over the matter and come to a mutual decision. We have one hope, that it will be a damn sight cooler than it was yesterday.
A damn sight cooler?
Yeah,
as in like sort of heat-wise.
Yeah, it's just like, they called all the reporters there to make this statement, so all the reporters are like, oh, they're going to say something now. It's just like, yeah, we want it to be cooler.
Be cooler.
Yeah, fucking
do it cooler. Say, do an Austin 316.
So, Darrow's strategy was to use the testimony of the alienists to mitigate the death penalty. Now, Doctors Hulbert and Bowman studied every single detail of the lives of Leopold and Loeb and compiled it into an exhaustive report of some 300 pages of official transcript. The report was made to determine whether or not insanity was a justifiable plea for the defence. Most importantly, it set out to discover why these two boys killed Bobby Franks. It went into the early lives and petty crimes and both committed and talked about how, in exchange for limited homosexual favours, Leopold was allowed, the entire city of Liverpool, was allowed to at certain intervals to insert his penis between Loeb's legs.
Loeb's legs.
Between his legs.
They had that contract.
He did.
They had a personal contract.
He was in the gym, he was pulling off his pants. The Hulbert Brown report was stolen over the weekend and was widely published on Monday, July 26th. Like ships in the night, we touch bums. Darrow began to state his argument in the style and substance that made him one of the greatest lawyers ever. Now, I don't understand that when everyone had been said in this case from the beginning to the end, the position of the state's attorney is that the universe will crumble unless these boys are hanged. I must say that I have never before seen the same passion and enthusiasm for the death penalty as I have in this case. There have been thousands of killings before this, much more horrible in details. There have been thousands before, and probably be thousands again.
Thousands?
It's ironic, isn't it?
Thousands?
They're in fucking Chicago. That just happens in a month. Whether these boys are hanged or go to prison, if I thought the hanging them would prevent any future murders, I'd probably be in favour of doing it. Perhaps don't know such thinking. What a mitigating circumstance? Is it youth? If so, why? Simply because the child has no judgment of life as a grown-up person to be? Here are two boys who are minors. You're the two boys. The law would forbid them from making contracts, forbid them from marrying without consent of their parents, and would not permit them to vote. Why? Because they haven't the judgment which comes with years, because they are not fully responsible. I cannot understand the glib, light-hearted carelessness of lawyers who talk about hanging two boys as if they are talking of a holiday or visiting the races. Now Darrow looked at Judge Cavalier and his voice hushed in respect. I don't believe there is a judge in Cook County that would not take into consideration the mental status of any man before they sentence him to death. The judge let the report be submitted as testimony and let Darrow's alienist testify. When talking about Richard Loeb, one alien said, "All of Dickie's life from the beginning of his antisocial activities has been in the direction of his own self-destruction. He himself has definitely and seriously considered suicide. He told me that he was satisfied with his life, and so far as he could see, life had nothing more to offer, because he had run the gamut. He was in the end of the situation. He had lived his life out." While another said, "I was amazed at such absolute absence of any signs of normal feelings, such as one would expect under the circumstances. He showed no remorse, no regret, no compassion for the people involved in this situation. He told me the details of the crime, including the fact that he struck the blow." When it came to Nathan Leopold, there was a bit more sympathetic, with one saying, "Dickie needed an audience. In his fantasies, the criminalistic gang was his audience. In reality, Babe was his audience. Babe's tendencies could be expressed as they were in the king-slave fantasy as a constant swing between a feeling of physical inferiority and one of intellectual superiority. Leopold is the slave who makes Dickie the king, maintains him in this kingdom. I cannot see how Babe would have entered into it all alone had he not no criminalistic tendencies in any sense as Dickie did, and I don't think Dickie would have ever functioned to the extent all by himself. So these two boys, with their peculiar interdigited personalities, came into this emotional compact with Frank's homicide as a result." Now, Darrow's closing statement lasted for 15 hours in what many consider to be his greatest speech. In the end, his summation with dramatic plea for the boy's life. You ready for this? Get the Oscar ready. "I do not know how much salvage there is in these two boys. I hate to say they're in the presence, but what is there to look forward to? I do not know, but your honour would be merciful if you tied a rope around their necks and let them die. Merciful to them, but not merciful to civilization, and not merciful to those who left behind. To spend the balance of their lives in prison is a little mighty look towards forward at anything, if anything. So far as I am concerned, it is over, and I think here the stanza of Halsman. Now hollow fires burn out to black, and lights are fluttering low. Square your shoulders and lift your pack, and leave your friends and go. Oh, never fear, lads, naught's to dread. Look not left nor right. In the endless road you tread, there's nothing but the night. I care not, your honour, whether the march begins at the gallows or at the gates of the Joliet close upon them. There is nothing but the night, and there is little for any human being to expect." Now, the prosecution's closing 2 days, and it didn't have any stanzas. Not even George.
Also, I've got to say at this point to him, that'll do, pig. That'll do.
Yeah.
It's a bait.
Yeah. Now, on Wednesday, September 19th, 1924, George Cavalier announced his decision. He agreed that a case could not be made for the boys being insane. However, he stated that they have shown in essential respects to be abnormal. Had they been normal, they would not have committed the crime. He went on to recognise that the details of reports of the alienists would be valuable contribution to criminology. For the crime of murder, confinement at the penitentiary at Joliet for the term of their natural lives. For the crime of kidnapping for ransom, similar confinement for the term of 99 years. He urged the boys should never be considered for parole.
Is this for all of them charges? Because it was like just one kid.
Yeah.
And I know it's... What's one kid between friends?
I mean, must have been the penis. The impact of the
penis.
He was the cock. The impact of the trial on the principals was severe. Nobody close to the case would ever be the same afterwards. Both Judge Cavalier and his wife immediately checked themselves into a hospital to recover from the enormous strain and exhaustion of the trial. When he returned to the bench, he arranged for only hear divorce cases. My health has been sapped.
Really? Like, this case has fucking done me
He's like,
in.
I'm only doing divorces now.
That's it.
Jacob Franks died a few years later and never recovered from the grief of losing his youngest son. Flora, Bobby's mother, who was delusional after her son's death and during the trial, did eventually recover her wits. She eventually remarried after her husband's death.
Jacob Frank's like the really laissez-faire husband who's like, let me know more. There will be more news.
He was gutted. He was like, he wasn't in the school. At first, prison officials tried to keep Leopold and Loeb apart, but eventually they ended up together. Their lives were drastically altered. A year later, when reporters came to see them, Leopold refused to be interviewed. Loeb was much altered. I can't talk to you. I'd like to say something, but I'm afraid I'll get him bad. Means don't.
Oh, so they were...
Literally, they were like...
It's just like, this never worked out. This never worked out.
In 1932, the two of them opened a school for the prisoners. Along with other educated inmates, Leopold and Loeb did the administrative work and taught classes. Both of them showed signs of rehabilitation. For once they were doing something really constructive with their lives, their intellectual gifts and their expensive educations. But prison is a very dangerous place to live, despite the illusion of security. On the 28th of January 1936, James E. Day, Loeb's cellmate, attacked him in the shower with a straight razor. Blood poured from over 50 razor wounds. 7 doctors and surgeons fought to save him, but Richard Loeb died at the age of 32 from loss of blood and shock.
Wow, it was lenient back then. They don't give him straight razors anymore.
He might have stole it, shank.
You can't shank with a straight razor. You have to slash. It's not got a point. If you want to shank, what you need to do is get like a load of Jolly Ranchers, and you like lick them all together, and then like get a file off to a point.
You back in the gym, changing room, and what was going on?
Look, it was a dangerous time, Jan.
Hey, touching moment. Afterwards, Leopold washed the blood from the body of his most intimate friend.
Oh.
Don't know if he fucked him. Possibly. James Day claimed that he delivered those 50-plus razor wounds because Loeb had made homosexual advances to him. This was highly unlikely since Loeb's throat was slashed from behind. Been bombing him.
I mean, that's the ultimate.
Could have been bending over, picking up his pants.
I mean, apparently, like, when that happens, you convulse, so that's a massive one. Like, can you imagine? I don't want to imagine.
Day and Loeb had many arguments before, usually related to Day's portion of the money that Loeb gave out to his friends for cigarettes and candy. So he's just there, dealing out money, going, poof, 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 poof. He's like, can I have some more? No. Out of the $50 monthly allowance that Loeb's family provided him, he completely supplied Day and the others with snacks and tobacco. When the new warden cut each prisoner's allowance to $3 a week, Day was jealous that he wasn't getting from Loeb what he thought he should. Day, of course, did not have a scratch on him, despite his plea that he killed Loeb in self-defence. The blood on Day's body was Richard's, regardless of the facts. Day was judged not guilty. So you slashed him 50 times? Yeah. And you slit his throat from behind? Yeah. You've got no defensive wounds? Nope.
Do you think, maybe Daddy sort of paid people in the prison to do that?
I don't think so. Now, Leopold, not surprisingly, devoted a great deal of his time in prison to learning. In addition to the 15 languages he had learned before he went to prison, he mastered 12 more. He studied mathematics and more arcane subjects. He continued arcane subjects like trigonometry, algebra. Probably like fucking like evolution, wasn't it?
That would have been arcane.
Well,
back then,
Clarence Darrow, I think it was Clarence Darrow. He went, like it was the monkey trial because somebody wanted to teach evolution in school, and he was the lawyer who fought for it. There you go.
No, it was at this time.
Yeah. He continued his work in the prison and school library. He raised canaries and volunteered in the malaria project.
Was he like an inspiration for like the Birdman of Alcatraz, or was that
that was an actual person?
That was an actual person.
Yeah. After many years of shunning the press, he decided to eventually rehabilitate his public image by careful cultivation of the press. Paid off after a while, and in 1953 he had a parole hearing. The state's attorney, John Gutknecht, was so opposed to Leopold's parole that he vigorously lobbied against it. The result was that not only Leopold turned down, but the parole board decided not to hear his case again for 12 years, the longest continuance in the history of Illinois. Finally, in March 1958, after 33 years in prison, Leopold was released on parole. He went to live in Puerto Rico to avoid harassment by the press. There he published The Birds of Puerto Rico, obtained a master's degree at the University of Puerto Rico, and worked at various positions.
So he carried on with the birds.
Yeah, he loved the birds, man.
I love the fact that he was like stalwart in regards to his love of ornithology.
He was the fucking expert on the warbler, wasn't he? In 1961, though, Leopold married Trudy Feldman Garcia de Quevedo, try saying that quick, and a former social worker from Baltimore, and a social worker from Baltimore with a name like that. Oh, Feldman Garcia de Quevedo. Oh, yeah. And she was a widow of a Puerto Rican physician. She's got a double barrel name, hasn't she? Yeah. 10 years later, in 1971, he died of a heart attack at the age of 66 with his wife by his side. And thus ends the ballad of Leopold and Loeb. It's a good one, wasn't it?
It's an interesting one.
Yeah. So, Ubermensch committing the perfect crime?
Not really.
Not really, no.
Not really.
I mean, if they would have put more planning into the
ransom
was
like 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
And the bit it failed at wasn't them. That was just the fucking idiots who couldn't remember the address. Maybe they should have given the cab driver the address as well.
Maybe they're putting a case across for this Ubermensch concept. Because what they did is relied on non-Ubermensch. Yeah.
There we go. If you are an Ubermensch and you're going to kill somebody just because you can, don't rely on the knobheads.
You can't rely on the cattle, you can't rely on the sheep.
Right, so. Anyway, yeah, so let us know, what do you think? Do you like that one? Good, I hope you did. If you didn't, go fuck yourself, I don't care. Anyway, yeah, remember, you can reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Also, we're on TikTok.
Yes, we are. We discovered that
I don't have time to edit videos enough.
There'll be more TikTok.
Are you doing them?
Can do them. Well, we need to brainstorm what sort of content we can do.
So what he means is, I'll say do this and it won't get done. Also, you can reach out to us on email at enterthedarkpodcast@gmail.com. Support us on Patreon if you do want to. You can go to www.patreon.com/enterthedark.
Have we got merch as well?
We got merch. That's the names of the patrons are going up right now, if I've edited this right. If I haven't, go fuck yourself. Thank you. It's been fun. I've been Jan. He's been Les. Take care. See you later. Bye-bye.